Okay. So, welcome everyone. I wanted to share some of the teachings that I've been working with for many years around sex and money. And so, these teachings have come from a few different places. They've come from my own study with some of my mentors around money and money mindset, and then really taking a lot of that and applying it to sex and looking at how there are parallels between sex and money. And so tonight I wanted to share some of that with all of you because typically in my programs, the women are very interested in knowing more about this sex and money connection. And so I often do free webinars about this, but I'm actually just going to share some of my curriculum with you. So I want to just really jump into that. So I want to just start with a little meditation, as we often do. So I'll just ask you to take things out of your hands. And this is a chance to stop doing the other things that you're doing and be fully present for the class. So just putting your hands in your lap, sitting up straight, placing your feet on the floor or sitting cross-legged if you're on the floor, and closing your eyes for a moment. And just checking in with your breath and with your body. And notice the sensations in your body right now. Notice any quickening, pain, ease, tightness, tingling. Just notice what's happening. Deepen your breath. Start to take in a deeper breath and send your breath to any part of your body that feels constricted or tight. And allow the breath to open you, to feed your cells, to invigorate you with fresh life force. And then just actively send your breath to any place in your body where you're feeling pain or tension. And let the healing power of that fresh breath attend to that part of your body. And just continue with full, deep, generous, expansive breaths. And allow yourself to receive the gift of them. And as you feel more open, expanded, and relaxed by this life force, continue to breathe in easeful breaths and to receive them. And take a moment to connect to yourself as part of the divine energy that our world is made of. You are a direct extension of the divine, of the creative life force. You are not separate from it or exiled from it. See divine life force pouring down into the crown of your head. See it as a bright light, as liquid gold pouring into your head, filling your entire body with golden, bright light. See that light filling in any dark places, any tight places, any blockages, any crevices that need that light. See that liquid gold just fill every part of you and clear anything you no longer need, creating space for all that you are ready to bring in. Feel yourself as the beautiful light being you know yourself to be. And I'm going to do a short attunement with you, so I'll invite you to repeat these words quietly after me. I know who I am in truth. I know what I am in truth. I know how I serve in truth. I am word through my body. I am word through my vibration. I am word through my knowing of myself as word. I am free, I am free, I am free. The word being the great I am. We all are the great I am. Take in one more deep breath, really allowing that to sink into your body and illuminate your being. And when you're ready, let your eyes flutter open and come back to this present moment, ready to receive what we are talking about tonight. Okay, welcome, welcome. So there's a bunch of pieces that I want to talk about tonight. And this comes from my course that I've been teaching for many years now on Sex and Money, Going All the Way. So, so I'm going to share one of the modules with you tonight, and then I'll share another module or combination of modules with you in 2 weeks. So I want to start by talking about desire. Some of these things you may have heard me talk about before, but so if you've heard them before, see if you can hear them in a different way. So a core piece of the connection between sex and money is desire. Most people experience desire around money, and most people experience desire around sex, or the desire for desire around sex, as sometimes the case may be. So the key to your being able to create the life that you really want is desire. It helps to, it's like our homing device. It helps us to be guided towards that which we really want, to get clarity about what that is. And we have many false ideas and many judgments about desire that come from our family, our religion, our culture, our media. And many of us have learned that desire is bad, or that we shouldn't want things, that we shouldn't need anything because it means that we are attached to things, and attachments are bad. So we learned that sexual desire is something that we should control. It's not something that we ever want to have be out of control. We should keep it quiet. We learned that it's this wild part of us, and so it's not okay for it to be that wild, and so it needs to be tamed, it needs to be contained. And please feel free to write into the chat any thoughts and messages you have received. This is a lot of what I have observed and heard from people over the years. Desire is part of our wildness, and that's good. Desire is essential. Your desire helps you get up every day. Your desire is what makes you want to be a better person. Your desire is what makes you want to grow. Your desire is why you're here. Desires are what motivate us to create art, to create community, to create businesses, creative projects, relationships, and beauty in the world. And the desires that move in you are what direct your life. So desire comes from the universe, God, goddess, spirit, the cosmic, creator, the creative stuff around us, whatever you like to call it. It comes from spirit seeking expression through you. And so I'll use different words for that energy during this class, and I know that people have different beliefs about it and different words that they use for it, and so you just insert whatever label or word works for you. That's, you know, I'm talking about that bigger idea. So most of us are taught that we can't really have what we want in life. We're raised with that idea. And we witness all kinds of people all over the world not get what they want and need. And we hear it, we're taught it, we see it. And many of us learn that we have to work really, really hard in order to get the things that we want. And that even when we work really, really hard, we still might not get where we want to be. So we get all these ideas that we can't have what we want, or that it's just wrong to want to begin with. So I want to talk about this idea in tonight's class because I think it's really, really important. And there's a mirror in the way that that can show up in both money and sex. And so that judgment you have about your own desire clearly could be one of the reasons that you are unable to get what you want, if those judgments are present. And when you see other things not get what they want, that then models for you that it's hard to get what you want. And so depending how we grew up and what we saw in our families, how much love was present, how much financial, struggle was there, or financial well-being was there, all of that, how much joy. So there's an imprint that happens when we witness something over and over again. And so this is a critical part of why wealth disparities and sexual traumas can remain in place generation after generation after generation in families. So if you grow up seeing a pattern playing out, or just knowing that it's played out, even if you don't know what happened to the people in your family sexually, but you know that there's trauma, or you feel the trauma, even if you don't know it in your mind, there's a way in which then that vibration is still running. And there's a way in which we learn that, and we end up reproducing that trauma. If we grow up in a family that is living in poverty, then we learn that that is how money works, that is what is normal for living. And then often, unless we find a way to pull ourselves out of that and really go beyond what our family did, we will repeat the same dynamic in our own lives. So what I want to say about desire is that true desire is divine. If you are desiring things, it comes from only one of two places. It's either coming from spirit or God or goddess, trying to express spirit or God with and through you, or it comes from a dysfunctional place inside of yourself. And it's very important that we hold the truth above everything else to know which one of those it is. And so we have to ask ourselves, is this desire dysfunctional in any way? Spirit gave you desire so that you could create more life and grow. That's what life actually wants to do. It wants to create more life. It wants to grow. And Spirit wants you to make something out of your life, and it gives you every tool in the universe to do it. It doesn't punish us. It doesn't withhold from us. We withhold from ourselves. And we all have access to all of the information that is available in the universe, all of the same information. None of us are less privy to it than others. None of us are more privy to it than others. So what's different is that we each grow up in a specific environment with specific people and circumstances that affect our ability to create the life we want and to believe that we can create the life that we want. And so we're full of beliefs and ideas and values that are controlling what we're creating in our life, the results that we're getting from our actions. And so that is a place that it's important to look at in order to create understanding so we can change what isn't working. So let's jump in, and I want to talk about subconscious programming, starting with who you are. So there are 4 important aspects to who you are. So number 1, you are a spiritual being. We are all spiritual beings. Number 2, we all live in a physical body. And then number 3, within our spirit and our physical body, we are gifted with an intellect, which is our ability to think or reason. And that ability to think or reason makes us different from any other life form on this planet. And so the way we choose to use our intellect to think about things, to ask questions, and to evaluate our life determines the fourth part of who we are, which is our emotions. Our emotions come from our thoughts. So we are actually very trained to be led around by our emotions. Our emotions give us a lot of information, and they are very, very important in telling us how we are thinking. If we are feeling sad or bad emotionally in some way, it's important to look at what is going on in your thoughts, because there was a thought that led to us feeling bad. And it can happen so instantaneously, so quickly sometimes, that we don't even realize it. There's not even an imprint of it. It's so fast. It's like, there's the thought, and then we sink into depression or sadness or anger or whatever it is. So you want to bring order to your understanding and remove confusion, because as confusion gets out of the way, then you're able to make new choices and do something different with your life and not get stuck in emotions like depression, despair, sadness, anger, frustration, which are very unabundant emotions, right? None of those things are sexy. None of those things are inviting. They don't bring to us what we want to have. So when most people hear the word mind, they think of the brain. But the mind is not the brain. The brain is the tool that we think with, but the mind is universal, and it exists in every cell within our bodies and in every part of the world. There is a universal mind that is powerful beyond all measure. All information and that has ever been is in that universal mind, and all of us can tap into that. And that is why sometimes we will see patterns in the culture where suddenly several different projects crop up about the same thing, right? Because we're pulling from that universal mind. And so there might be different artists or writers or thought leaders that are pulling from that same chunk of information, that it's ready to really come into the human consciousness. And so we'll see it at once happen in multiple places. And it's not because somebody is copying somebody else. It could be, but more likely it is that we're pulling from that universal mind. So I'm going to pass on some handouts of these next figures to you, but I'm going to talk about these pieces and show you some stick figures that were done by the late Dr. Thurman Fleet. He did these figures in the 1930s. He developed this way of talking about this in the 1930s to really demonstrate the idea of the universal mind and body and how human beings work with it. So the mind, as I said, has two pieces. So if you look at again, it's okay. Number one, the conscious mind is where we think or reason. It is where our free will resides. Your conscious mind can accept or reject any idea. And the thoughts that you consciously choose to hold will direct the outcome of any situation or circumstance in your life. You hold that power, and this is your power of choice. And that power of choice comes from your conscious mind. And choice, your power of choice, is what makes freedom possible. This is very important. So if we could just really work with our conscious mind and direct everything consciously, that would be amazing, right? But there's this other part of our mind, which is our subconscious mind. And so if you think about that, that's like this bottom part, right? This more subterranean part that we are not always conscious of, but it's always at work. And so this part of the mind is known as the emotional or the feeling mind. And your subconscious is a marvelous part of your mind. It is quite incredible what the subconscious mind does. And because it's so incredible, it gets in our way a lot as well. So what is so amazing about it is that it carries every thought, feeling, or idea that comes through your conscious mind with exact detail through you in your emotions and actions, right? So it's like a filter, it filters it right into your emotions and actions. And we often don't even, again, we don't even see where did that emotion come from? You know, why am I doing that thing? your subconscious mind does not have the ability to reject. So whatever ideas you choose to impress upon your subconscious will become a part of your personality. These ideas will express themselves automatically without any conscious assistance. And these things then become habits. We get a lot of habits from our subconscious mind. And so again, going back to when we were young, everything we took in, especially before the age of 7, we took right into our subconscious mind, because small children don't have a conscious mind online yet. You didn't have that yet. And so everything filters right into your subconscious because there was no ability to reject it or accept it. So whatever was modeled for you in your family at those young ages is in your subconscious mind. And your subconscious mind doesn't know the difference between that which is real and that which is imagined. This is part of what is quite marvelous about it. So when we say something like, oh, I wish it could be different, that's coming from the conscious mind. It's not being expressed from our subconscious mind. Our subconscious mind will just regurgitate exactly what we put into it. So we'll come back to this in a moment. So then the body is the material medium in which we live, right? And it's actually not solid. We think it's solid, but it's atoms that are moving at a very high rate. All thoughts, ideas, and feelings, which are consciously chosen and subconsciously accepted, must be and will be expressed through the physical body in one way or another. So if we don't give conscious, healthy expression to something, we suppress it. And then it will express itself in an unhealthy way. It will find a way to express. So the expression of these ideas that have filtered down through our body from the subconscious will then determine our conditions, our circumstances, our environment, and our results. So in other words, your entire external life is going to reflect what has come through. Your external life was created by what was going on in your subconscious mind. And this is true all of the time, and this works the same way for everyone. There's no one that this doesn't work this way for. You all following me? Okay. If you have questions, pause me. So the things that we then see in our lives came through some kind of subconscious feeling or idea, right? So like the example I was giving earlier, you grow up in poverty, you see poverty over and over, you think this is how families live, they live in poverty, then you're unless there's an interruption of that idea, like a really powerful shift, you're going to recreate poverty in your life. And so this is why we see generation after generation after generation go through similar things. So let's get back to desire. So desire lives in the subconscious mind. You were born with desire in your subconscious mind. When you came into this world, there was some desire in you. There was a reason why you came into this life. There was something you were here to learn. There was something you were here to create. There was something you were here to contribute. All of us have that. We are all contracted with some kind of experience that we are prepared to have in our lives. And that desire lives right there in the subconscious mind. You are born to be free. And you are born to create life, and you are born to be a success. And yet, the way that you are programmed is to stay right where you are, wherever that may be. And so, as I said, when we are infants, when we're young, we had no conscious mind developed. And so everything that was going on around us went right into our subconscious mind. It's like it got all dumped in there. Like our head looked like this, like it was just open. It was just like open, receptive. Everything that was happening just got dumped. All the thoughts, the ideas, the emotions of your parents, of the people in authority, the people around you, all of that went right in, and you accepted them because you had no ability to reject those things. So they went right into your subconscious and just got lodged there. And they weren't things that you were necessarily consciously aware of, right? They're in your subconscious. They're just there. And so around age 7, you put a cap on that subconscious mind, and you began to experience those things consciously as your conscious mind developed, right? So then the cap came. Now, your beliefs are given to you by other people, and many of our beliefs are based on all kinds of dysfunctional thinking that prevent you from thinking what you really want to think. If you could just get those beliefs out of the way and see the desire. But what happens is that you take in all those beliefs of all those people around you, largely your parents, right, and other authority figures in your life, your teachers, people that were around you and molding you when you were little. And so that desire is in there, but all of those beliefs start to get piled in and piled in and piled in, and you're not questioning them for many reasons. And so they start to obscure your desire. And you, to the point where you no longer see the desire that is in there, that is in the heart of your subconscious mind. That desire that is why you are here and what you are here to do. And so then the path to your own desire is no longer as clear as it could be, because there's all these other beliefs that have come in and kind of made it cloudy, right? Kind of just like in this image here. All these beliefs have just come in and they're obscuring that desire, but that desire is still there. But depending on how limiting those beliefs are, you might begin to think that that desire isn't even possible anymore. You might think it's this like pie in the sky dream, like that's never going to happen for me, that's not even possible. And then those beliefs that you have, they will vibrate a series of cells in your brain. And then that vibration starts to vibrate off of you through the body. So many people, what happens is that many people are sending out double messages. So you might be saying one thing, but if you are, if you're saying one thing and then the vibration you're giving off says another, and that's a conflicting message, or what we might call a double binding message, people will move away from you and you might not know why. Or your desire becomes unclear. And so then you start to get mixed, confusing things happening in your life, and it's unclear why. And you're not getting what you want. And so in order to align ourselves so that we can be aligned with that desire and not giving off a mixed message, we have to get all these pieces in alignment. So let's talk for a minute about the law of vibration. So the law of vibration states that everything in life has a frequency. You are an electrical being. You vibrate with your desires, your beliefs, your thoughts, and your ideas. All of that vibrates off of you without you saying anything. We are vibrational in nature. Every living thing is vibrational in nature. The table that my computer is sitting on is vibrational in nature. There's a vibration to it. Every piece of furniture around you has a vibration to it. And so if there's a part of you that's saying, I want an amazing relationship, right? Or I want to make more money, or I want to have a beautiful home, or whatever the thing is, if the belief inside is, well, I'm not going to be able to have that though, you know, or I don't deserve that, or nobody I know has that, so I can't really have it either, then there's a mixed signal that you're sending, and you're not going to get the thing that you really want until you get aligned with that idea. And so this is often what's happening. People are saying something out of their mouths, but in their mind, there's a whole different thing happening, or they might be vibrating a whole different thing from their bodies. And so it's very important that you control your thoughts so that they vibrate with the right frequency, or you're not going to get what you want. This is why there's so much talk about thoughts create things, and how important it is to manage our thoughts and have our thoughts be what we really want. And have our words be that. To not be talking negatively about ourselves. To not be calling ourselves names. To not be picking on our bodies. This is so, so, so important. So you can remove time and space from your desires. Time and space is constructed. And so when you give yourself time for a desire, okay, I'm gonna buy a house in 3 years, right? You will take the 3 years to buy the house because you will automatically fill a space that is given. This is law, right? Voids will always be filled with something. And so if we close the time-space gap in having what we want, we actually realize we don't have to wait. Like, we create the waiting. We create, it's constructed. I mean, the truth is it could happen today. It could happen this week. It could happen this month. It could happen now. So time and space don't have to be a factor in getting the things that we want, but we make them a factor. Now, there is the law of gestation. There is a gestation period that things have. And so that is important. So some things do have a gestation, like a natural gestation. And a lot of times we can speed up that gestation if we just believe and think differently, and take action differently around the things that we want. So a lot of people have heard of the law of attraction. When the law of attraction talks about thinking something towards you, it's missing the bigger piece, which is that the vibration you're sending to the universe, right? If you're thinking that you want something, but everything in your body and action says you won't get it, then you're not going to get it, right? You have to be in alignment. And if you want something, it is already here. It's actually already here. The things that we desire already exist, or we wouldn't be able to desire them. And so a lot of times the question then is, what's the opportunity I'm not seeing? What's the question I'm not asking? What's the person I've already met that I need to be seeing differently? Where is the answer? Is already here. So I want to talk more about the power of vibration and how we create vibration. So this is a chart of feeling vibrations, and I'll give you handouts of this as well. You'll get these handouts. So every feeling has a vibration, and there's a hierarchy to these vibrations. All feelings have vibrations. So feelings vibrate at different frequencies, and some are much higher frequencies and some are lower frequencies. There is a hierarchy to these frequencies. And so you can see in this chart the range of emotions that we might feel. So you want to be vibrating at the frequencies that are on the left side of the page. Those are positive, creative, powerful frequencies. The right side is a list of frequencies that are lower, that are less productive and even destructive frequencies. And they are in an order. They are numbered because they are in order. So the highest vibrations you can experience are joy, love, appreciation, gratitude, faith, and trust. So every day, we want to do our best to be feeling and experiencing those vibrations. And then after that is passion. And then after that is enthusiasm, eagerness, and happiness. And then after that is positive expectation and belief. Then we have optimism. Then we have hopefulness. And then we have contentment. Those are the highest vibrations. So we want to stay in those vibrations as much as possible in our lives, and when it is about the things that we want to create in our lives. So then when we move over to the lower vibrations, it starts with boredom. Then we get to pessimism, then frustration, irritation, and impatience, then overwhelm, then disappointment, then doubt, worry, blame, discouragement, anger and resentment. But it keeps going. Revenge, hatred, rage, jealousy, insecurity, guilt, and unworthiness. And then finally, the lowest vibrations are fear, grief, depression, despair, and powerlessness. So there's a lot of things that are really, I think, interesting about this. And this comes from Ask and It Is Given, Learning to Manifest Your Desires, by which is an Abraham Hicks book, Esther and Jerry Hicks. Those most destructive frequencies get us really, really stuck. When we're feeling depression, when we're deep in our fear, it can almost paralyze us, right? Notice that those are down at 22, but if we go back, anger is actually at 17, right? So anger, actually, there's more movement in anger. We don't get as stuck in anger as we do in depression, despair, powerlessness. So if you find yourself on the right side of this chart, it's very important that you work to bring yourself higher up on the list. Now, it can be very challenging to try to go from 22 to 1. That's not an easy jump to make. But even if you raise that frequency just a couple of emotions higher, if you could just get to jealousy instead of fear, right? If you could get up to anger instead of depression, that actually elevates your vibration. You're working your way up. And it can be hard to make a jump like a huge jump. So one of the quickest ways, and I think most effective ways to actually get yourself to the right when you're on the left, to the left when you're on the right, is gratitude. Because if you just pause when you're in your rage and think of, okay, what are 3 things I can look around this room and say I'm thankful for right now? Right? That is quick, right? And there's an activeness to gratitude that I think is very helpful in moving our vibration. So gratitude practices really, really are important. And I'll talk a little bit about that before we close out. So gratitude can bring you back into joy and pleasure and love faster than just about anything else. So I really do want to encourage you, if you don't have one, to create a gratitude practice and to do that on a regular basis, because it keeps you in that really high vibration. I think that's a very easy way, or one of the easier ways to stay there. So then there's the law of polarity. So the law of polarity says that you can't have an up without a down. You can't have a left without a right. You can't have a wrong without a right. You can't have a dark without a light. So you can't desire a love relationship and have it not be possible. It's already here, like I said. You couldn't be given the desire to have a particular kind of sexual experience, or a desire for money, or a desire for other kinds of abundance without them already being present. The presence of the fulfillment of the desire is the other half of the thing itself. So that law of polarity is always at work, right? You couldn't have victimization without empowerment, right? It's just the other side of the coin. So if we're feeling in our victim, if we're experiencing victimization, empowerment is also present, whatever that means and whatever that looks like. So if you think about sexuality specifically, many people approach it as something that we just put on autopilot. It's just going to happen, and it's just going to be based on instinct, which you all have been with me for a while. You know that this is not how it works, right? And sexuality is not unlike anything else. You have to focus on creating the sexual life that you want to have in order to create it. It's about who you're being and what you are vibrating and what you are believing you get to have and experience. And I think that many people get very discouraged about their sexual life because they put a time limit on it. They think that they are limited by their current marriage or their current relationship, and they give up. They settle. And you do not have to settle. You get to create what you want. But you have to be willing to do the work to get yourself in alignment so that you can have it. And a lot of times that means getting the things out of your life that are not in alignment. That means saying, this relationship isn't good for me. I need to end this relationship so that I can create the relationship I really want to have. Because as long as I'm in this toxic relationship, I'm telling the universe that that's okay with me, that that's what is acceptable. And that one's hard for people. A lot of times we want to keep the old things and still try to go for the new things, and see how there's a mixed signal there to the universe. If it's really not in alignment, we have to clear it out of our lives, whether it's habits, beliefs, relationships. You know, we talk about this in Fire Women when we talk about release. What are the things we have to release so that we can make that clear path to have the things that we really want? And it's hard because it often means giving something up, right? You have to give up who you've been in order to have who you're meant to be who you're meant to be. And it's the same for money. You have to give up something about who you have been around money or around whatever abundance you want to have in your life in order to create where you're going. So who you are being is what has created your current circumstance. So the shift has to happen in who you're being and what you're vibrating in order to have a different experience, result, or circumstance. You have to do something new to have a new result. It was Einstein who said, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and thinking that we're going to get something different. So Napoleon Hill wrote a book in 1937 called Think and Grow Rich. It's a classic book. And in the book, he did actually an entire chapter, which I think is miraculous that in the 1930s, he wrote this. He interviewed successful people to figure out what were the commonalities of success. And he wrote an entire chapter on sexual energy. He called it sexual transmutation. So this is a quote from that chapter. It says, "Sex desire is the most powerful of human desires. When driven by this desire, men develop keenness of imagination, courage, willpower, persistence, and creative ability unknown to them at other times. So strong and impelling is this desire for sexual contact that men freely run the risk of life and reputation to indulge it. When harnessed and redirected along other lines, this motivating force maintains all of its attributes of keenness of imagination, courage, etc., which may be used as powerful creative forces in literature, art, or in any other profession or calling, including, of course, the accumulation of riches." 1937. It's pretty great. So that sexual energy, you know, you've heard me say this in different ways in our classes, right? That sexual energy is the creative juice. It's the creative life force that we create everything with. We get to harness and direct it in the way that we want to harness and direct it. All right. So couple, we'll take a few moments here. So what were some key messages you learned about money when you were growing up, and especially at a young age? What were some of the key messages? If you want to take a moment to write some of them down, and if you feel up for putting them in the chat, that's great. I'll open up my chat. What were some of the key messages about money? And again, we all grew up differently. We may have received really different messages. Just give a few minutes here. Aurora says that it was hard and you had to sacrifice something to get it. Yep. So it was hard, that it was hard to make money, to get money. Yeah, and it required sacrifice. Yep. And you're also welcome to just unmute if you want to just talk. That's fine too. We're a small group tonight. A lot of scarcity mindset as well. How did the scarcity mindset show up? Do you want to unmute and just talk about that for a minute?
Yeah. Well, in general, that it was not enough, and that it was like you get a little bit and you have to take care of it because you don't know when more might come, or or the idea also that it's like if you have it, someone else might not. Like you are happy or you are like lucky because you have food in your plate today because so many people don't have it.
Yeah, like that idea that you're taking away from someone else if you get something. So it's like, so even when you get it, to feel guilty and bad about it.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think a lot of us learn that. It's like, there are starving children in Africa. How could you spend money on that? Or something. I mean, I definitely heard some of those messages. Yep. Yeah. Karen, do you want to jump in? Is there anything that came up around what your messages were growing up?
If you want it, you have to earn it and go to work for it and get an education.
Mm-hmm.
It was all centered around that, and it was kind of we started working very early to,
Mm-hmm.
It was used as a, I don't know, to kind of say, if you don't get a certain education, you're going to be stuck with no money here at this kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I never really treated it very respectfully for a long time because of that. I looked at it. I don't think I got the right message there.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, I think it's very common in working class and middle class families that you learn that you have to work really, really hard to get it. That it's like hard to get money, that it requires effort to have money. And that's an idea that we actually could let go of. Like, money doesn't have to be hard. It definitely doesn't have to be hard. But I think many of us learned that. That certain careers can't make a living. Like what, Aurora? I'll just unmute you. Oops.
Yeah. For example, in my case, it was always like into art, and it was like I wanted to study art, and it was like, no, you're gonna die. Right. You're not gonna make a living out of it.
Right.
That's what I switched, and I went into design because design was more like a actual profession or something that might make a living out of it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That stereotype of the. Go ahead.
Sorry. Well, no, and I was saying that it's like something that now it's part of my challenge. It's like doing something good, like meaning the coaching practice or the energy healing services, like it's been hard to make money out of that because it's like I have been like cleaning a lot of beliefs in the sense that like, why am I going to charge for doing good?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Oh yeah, all those kinds of things. Like, oh, you shouldn't charge for that. And then you're talking about like what is a very strong archetypal figure, which is the starving artist, right? We all know the stereotype, that archetype of the starving artist, right? That that can't survive as that's not a legitimate way to survive in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I learned that in the sexuality field. My own mentors told me, oh, honey, you're never going to make money as a sex educator. My own mentors told me that. I was like, what? Is that true? My therapist told me that I had made this choice. I mean, it came from all kinds of directions, lots of authority figures in my life. So it took a long time for me to finally find mentors where it was like, no, I'm not, that's not how we're doing this. Yeah. So, yeah. Okay, so let's shift over to what were some key messages that you learned about sex?
Wow, that it was wrong, that it's like it's a kind of a sin, and it's not something to be proud of or like go into or let yourself like dive into.
Yeah. What about you, Karen? When you were young, what were key messages you learned? Whether they were spoken or not. A lot of times they weren't even spoken, right? It was just an unspoken idea.
Yeah.
Never talked about.
So what's the message? If it was never talked about, what's the message? Because there's still a message, right? In silence.
Yeah.
You're not supposed to talk about it. You're not supposed to acknowledge it or something.
Mm-hmm. It's taboo. Something to keep quiet about, private, secret even. Sometimes we learn that it's something to be secretive about.
Yeah, I thought it was weird.
What's that?
It was weird because you have to learn about it some way. So it's not in your home,
Mm-hmm. And yet so many parents get pissed off when they're doing sex education in schools. It's like, well, you're not doing it. What do you expect? Yeah. Like, what are the kids supposed to do?
Like, it's going to happen.
Yeah, that's a setup. But yeah, so I mean, I think a lot of us do. We get the message from the not talking about it. It's like we just internalize whatever meaning we give that, then becomes what we believe about it.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to presence this a little bit as we think about the wounds that we've taken on, right? And how those messages relate to our current struggles around money and sex, and are there patterns we can look at? Is it, do we still feel secretive about sex? Do we still, even though we want to address it, does it still feel like something taboo that we don't? Or what was the other one you said? Is it something that, we have to, if we have that scarcity mindset around money when we were growing up, do we have a scarcity mindset about love and about sex and about sexy experiences? Do we still have that scarcity mindset around money? Do we feel like we have to sacrifice, right? Going back to some of the things that you mentioned. So so I think taking some time to look at that, this is a great journaling question. How do the messages we got relate to your struggles around money and sex? Are there patterns that we still have now that we want to break? And then we can start to tackle them, you know, and really like really rewire. A lot of it is about rewiring the beliefs. So the wounds are in our subconscious mind, and we all have wounds, right? There's wounds that we may have developed out of those messages, or some of those messages may have developed from our wounds. So it's really essential that we work to heal the wounds that are there so that they don't have power over us anymore. Because when a wound is not healed, what we do is we recreate it over and over because it's in that subconscious part of our mind. It's still there. It's unhealed. It is uninterrupted. And so then it's still getting energy because we're recreating it over and over, and so we're keeping it alive. And it becomes an automatic reaction that we have to things that are going on in our life. And so we create these defensive patterns and these coping mechanisms around our wounds. And those defensive patterns and coping mechanisms will either make them worse or they will make them better. And this goes for both sex and money. So an example might be you get defensive when someone questions you because you were made wrong so much when you were a child, right? Actually, go back. So another example might be you avoid intimacy because you were abused or you were molested as a child, and your subconscious ideas about what intimacy is or what intimacy leads to are very negative. And so you don't trust. And so when you don't trust, you avoid. If you were neglected as a child and not given the love that you really needed, you might hide your needs as an adult because you learned that your needs weren't important or your needs couldn't get met. And so you might go into a mode of being very independent, just taking care of your own needs and not relying on anybody else, which, yes, you do need to do that. And you also get to have needs met, right? That gets to shift. If you are always seeking love and approval outside of yourself, you might be doing that because when you were little, you were told that you were not okay, that you were wrong, that there was something about you that wasn't approved of. And so in order to get love, you had to seek approval. So we all have lots and lots of wounds. They happened when they happened, but what then follows is that they live in your subconscious mind. The wounding experience is over, but it lives on in your subconscious mind. And so you're not actively working with it necessarily, but you'll relive it over and over again, which then rewounds you over and over again and makes the wound bigger. And so this is the cycle that we can get into that is very disempowering to us. And so the way out of that is that we do the healing work on it. We take responsibility for the parts of our experience that we need to heal so that we can move forward and stop wounding ourselves over and over. And this is really hard for some people, especially when there were big, egregious wounds. And we can set ourselves free from them. You came to have a certain experience, and the experiences that you have had were the ones that you needed to have in order to grow and develop and create the life that you were meant to live. Every single experience you've had is part of what has made you who you are, and is part of what gave you the learning that you needed, that your soul wanted and agreed to for this lifetime. You wouldn't be who you are if any part of that experience would have been taken away. Right? I would not be doing sexuality work. I would probably be a lawyer or something. I would not be doing this work if I hadn't had wounds around my sexuality. Those wounds were tremendously important in me finding my path in the world. And so I had to go through my own journey to a place of my own sexual empowerment in order to see that my path was to help other people with that. And I would not have had the compassion that I need to have for other people without my wounds. And I would not have realized the importance of sexuality and dedicated my life to it without them. So where I am now is that I know I needed to have those experiences. I've done the healing work, so I can take full responsibility for them because I'm creating my life from them. I don't have a charge around them anymore. There was a time when I did. There was a time when they were too raw for me to actually even be able to help somebody else because I had to do my own work. And so I created those experiences so that I could grow and expand and then be the teacher and guide around sexuality that I have become, which is such a beautiful thing to see that that's the flower that grew out of the wounds. And so my wounds allowed my heart's desire to manifest in the world. And they've been a gateway to creating the life that I want to have. And so why wouldn't I take responsibility for that? Wow, that was pretty crafty. You know, that is beautiful. And it's a place that sometimes people aren't there yet. You know, sometimes when you talk about responsibility and wounds, people feel like we're victim blaming or something. And that's not what it is. I'm talking from a much higher vantage point. I'm talking about from a much higher perspective. Right? Nothing that happened to us was our fault. It's not about fault and it's not about blame, but it is about, wow, I came into this life and I had these really potent experiences. They must have been for a reason. So if we can start to see our wounds from that higher perspective, that helps us to heal them. It's not the only part, but it's an important part. And as long as we stay in victimhood about sex or about money or about love or about relationships or about betrayal, whatever it is, we're not going to be empowered, right? But remember, empowerment is just the other side of that victimhood coin. It's right there. But the coin is on one side or the other. You can't be a victim and be empowered at the same time around the same thing, right? So we've got to flip it. So what is the more empowered way to see our past experiences? And really to see that if there's a feeling of victimhood, then your empowerment is also present. That is the law of polarity. So that doesn't mean that everyone has to become a sex educator, but like it happened for a reason. It happened because there was something in you that wanted to learn something that would help you to create something in your life or in your relationships. And part of the healing is figuring out those parts. What was this about for me? Right? And again, that's coming in from that higher self. We're coming in from the higher self when we're able to ask those questions. Right? Wow, okay. I went through these tough things when I was little. Let me kind of look at the big picture of my life and ask myself, what was the higher purpose for that? And I say this with a lot of compassion and a lot of tenderness. I have heard many, many very deep, challenging sad stories over the years about people's sexual experiences, their violations, the things that have happened to them. I've heard some pretty gnarly stories. So I say this with a tremendous amount of respect for that and honoring of that. And what I want for everyone that I work with is that we are able to heal those things and move through those things so that we don't keep reproducing the same energies or the same experiences that we produced, that those initial experiences produce in our lives. So let's talk about some of the key patterns around sex and money. So there's the feeling of lack or feeling deprived, which we already mentioned. So what I have seen is that people will generally run the same pattern around sex that they run around money. It might be slightly different, but sometimes we're like, but my sex life is great. I don't get why I don't have money, or I have plenty of money, but why is my sex life not working, right? But like, look deeper. Like sometimes we have to kind of look underneath what seems obvious on the outside. It's not about the more sex you have, the more money you're going to have. That's not what I'm talking about. It's not like a tit for tat kind of thing. But if there's a feeling of deprivation around one, there probably is a feeling of deprivation in some way around the other, or fear of that. A lot of times we have extreme behaviors around both sex and money. We have feelings of unworthiness around both sex and money, or guilt. Sometimes there's a deception or a feeling of needing to be secretive around both sex and money. Sometimes there is hopelessness around both. Sometimes there's blaming other people for our issues around sex and around money, or being in that victim place. Sometimes there is manipulation and people pleasing. The feeling that if I just ask for something, I'm not going to get it. So I need to people please others in order to get it, which is a manipulation. I need to manipulate them in order to get my needs met. Many of us learned that because we didn't get our needs met when we were kids. So we learned that we had to be a good girl in order to be worthy of something or to get something, or we had to get good grades, or whatever the thing was that we were rewarded for. That's very common. Poor decision making. We might have poor decision making around both sex and money. And then there's a pattern of comparison and aligning with deficits, right? The alignment with what I don't have and what I want, and why does she have it and I don't have it, right? That comparison, competition energy is not abundant, right? What is much more abundant is to say, good for her. That's amazing that successful thing happened. It's amazing that she made all that money. It's amazing that she has the perfect partner and she's super happy in her relationship, right? We want to feel happy for people, because actually feeling into that vibration of their happiness only creates more happiness for ourselves, rather than going into the deficit. Oh, she gets it and I don't. Right? And we're taught to do that. We're all taught to do that. So that's a habit we really have to break if we tend to do that. So here's some defensive patterns. So then the way that we will behave, right? So this is the actions that we take so that was a lot of the thinking that goes on. And then this is a lot of the actions that we end up taking. We avoid, we deny, or we withdraw. I'm just going to pull away. I'm going to deny that it happened. I'm going to be in avoidance, which of course never fixes anything. There is the projection and the blame, right? I'm going to blame other people. I'm going to project it onto them that it's their fault, that they did this thing to me, and that's why this thing is happening, right? That's a big one. People really love to find out whose fault it is. If we are in full 100% responsibility for ourselves and our lives, there's no blame. It's not about blame. There's the catastrophe thinking, or the thinking in black and white, like it's you're good, you're bad, you know, oh my God, the most horrible thing is going to happen if I don't get this right, right? That like that immediately going into like the catastrophe, all the things that could go wrong. The other shoe is going to drop, right? Always waiting for the thing that's going to blow up. Displaced or unhinged anger. So anger that we're not processing effectively, productively. And then there's the busyness, or the veneer of doing, which is a way of avoiding intimacy. When we get really in our doing and really in that energy of busy, I'm such a busy person, we're avoiding intimacy. And that might be intimacy with our money just as well as intimacy with other people. Then there's the manipulation of others to get what you want, which we actually did just mention. Yeah. Oops. Come back. Here we go. Okay. So I want to talk about a few of these really common ones for a second. Some of the most common patterns people run around sex and money that I see a lot in my clients and my students, that I've experienced in myself. So these are, I think, typical parallel patterns that can be at work in both sex and money, which keep you from having what you want financially and sexually in your life. And so these are things that can begin to shift right now, but it starts with being honest with yourself about the fact that they're there at all. So the first one is the withholding, or the stinginess, or the economy, right? If you're someone who withholds affection, withholds love or sex from others when you're hurt or angry, you probably also do it with money. You probably also do it to yourself. You hold out and you don't give to yourself emotionally, spiritually, or in physical things. And that withholding energy it's part of scarcity, right? It's creating a scarcity. It's not creating abundance. It's not creating love. It's not creating an energy of more and more life, right? It's an energy of holding back on life. And it can get toxic. It can get toxic when it's really intense. The second one is deprivation. So this is more of a victim energy, right? Where you constantly feel like you're in a state of deprivation. You're not getting the love, the sex, the affection, the juiciness you want. You don't have the money you want, and you constantly feel deprived. And so then you deprive yourself more. Oh, I can't have that. Oh, I couldn't do that. Oh, I couldn't spend money on that. Oh, I couldn't take time to go on that date. You know, and often people who live in this place of deprivation have a martyr complex going, right? Oh no, I'm gonna withhold, and like that becomes a badge of honor, like how little you spend or how little you give to yourself. And if you grew up hearing no a lot, there's probably you're probably running a pattern of deprivation. I've certainly run that pattern, and I grew up in a household where the answer was always no. No, no, no. Why do you need that? No. Why do you need to go to that friend's house? No. It was just like, poof, everything, right? So it took some work to learn to say yes to myself and to get clear about the things I wanted to say yes to. The third pattern is anger. If you're always angry about how bad things are in your sex life or in your financial life, you know, and then you project your anger about sex and money at the people around you, at your partner, at other people that are close to you, at your parents, whatever. The anger is a tight, constricting energy, right? It's not an open, expansive, abundant energy. It's constricted. And so when you're in that constriction, it's not allowing you to have more of the openness you need to have what you want, more of the expansiveness and the abundance, right? You're blocking your flow when you're constricting energy. And anger is very constricted. It's very tight. right? So again, thinking about what is the vibration of these different feeling states. People pleasing, which we mentioned, right? You don't take care of yourself. You focus on meeting everybody else's needs rather than your own. And you use taking care of others as an excuse not to take care of yourself, right? And then at the end of the day, you don't have enough time or energy or sex or money. You feel depleted. You feel exhausted. And then you're using your people pleasing to get what you want in a passive aggressive way, right? Well, if I'm good to them, then when I have a need, they'll meet my needs, right? There's an unspoken expectation in people pleasing. And so you want other people to give to you, and you think that because you're being little Miss Perfect Giver, that they will. And so what's happening in this is that your want is not pure. You have ulterior motives, and it's not good for your relationships when you're in that people pleasing. People pleasing is a manipulation. It's not a clean energy. And a lot of times people pleasers, it's like, oh, she's such a good person. Or, it's the good girl complex, right? Of like, just take care of everybody, even at the expense of yourself, right? And so then what ends up happening is it breeds a resentment. You will end up feeling resentful if you do that long enough. And probably many of us have that in our families. We have somebody in our families, usually a woman, who was that person. Not always, though. There are definitely men who are also big people pleasers. Just doormat, walked all over. And then the fifth really common pattern is the inability to receive. I mean, there are so many patterns, but these are 5 that I see a lot. So really hard to receive. If you can't even receive a compliment, how are you going to receive money? How are you going to receive juicy sex? How are you going to receive the lover of your dreams, right? If it's hard for you to receive in any way, right? Really looking at like, how receptive are you to love, to joy, to attention, to conversation, to intimacy, to openness, to joy, to gratitude, right? Someone pays you a compliment, the answer is, thank you. Or if you're feeling sassy, thank you, I know, right? That's the answer. Not, oh, this old thing, oh, it's nothing. Or, like there's so many ways we deflect just compliments or like nice energy coming towards us. So, and it really points to how difficult it is for a lot of us to receive. So working on sex and money, working on one really allows you to work on the other. And ignoring one or feeling powerless in it can result in some powerlessness in the other, or having things go sideways because we're ignoring it. So because sex and money are so hidden away from view, so tend to be our patterns. And so we all need some help to get underneath what's happening on the outside and to get really clear about what's holding us back inside, and the tools to help us really create lasting change. And that's a lot of what we get to do here in Firewoman and in my other programs. We all need that. There's nothing wrong with us for needing that. It's really hard to see these things in our own little silos. So, whether it's here, whether it's somewhere else. But what I do know is that we all get to break through our patterns. There's not one of us that doesn't get to heal, that doesn't get to break the pattern, because life wants us to have more life. Life is not meant for punishment. It's not meant to make us miserable or to pay our dues so that we can have the things that we want. Life is set up for us to be successful. It is meant to be enjoyed. And if we're not given the information and the skills and the knowledge for how to be successful, or what that success would look like, then what's going to happen is we will tend to believe what other people tell us it is, right? Rather than really know for ourselves. And then those beliefs will get into the subconscious, as we looked at earlier, and they will obscure the desire that is there. They get in the way, so we get cloudy and we really can't see our desire. So I think I just want to end by talking a little bit about the gratitude practice. So I use gratitude practice in several ways. And there's lots of ways to bring gratitude into our lives all the time. So one way I use a gratitude practice is that every time I eat, I give thanks to the animals and the plants that made that nourishment possible. I give thanks to the hands who grew and prepared and delivered that food to me. That is such a simple way of having gratitude. To be taking any food into our bodies without first a thank you, to me is disrespectful to that food, right? So that's a very simple way, and many of us have practices around that. So another gratitude practice is to give thanks every day for what happened that day. And I love to do this before bed. Sometimes I do it in a writing journal. I'll write down what went well today, what are the experiences, the people, and the moments that I'm grateful for. I used to do this with my partner before bed. We would do this together. So if you have a lover or you have a family member, and I've talked with many parents who do this with their children, which I think is beautiful. So even if you have nieces and nephews or kids around you, it's a wonderful thing to do with them, to teach them. So to do this out loud with someone you love, it's a wonderful thing to say, oh man, this thing happened today. I had this beautiful moment with this woman today on the train. Oh, and I just can see her smile right now, right? What a wonderful energy to go to sleep with, right? Because the energy that we set ourselves up with before we go to bed at night is very, very important. Because what is at work when we're in bed at night? Our subconscious mind, right? That's where our dreams come from. That's our subconscious mind is working things out at night. And so if we go into the sleeping state, the dreaming state, from a place of gratitude, that is a very powerful way to set ourselves up for a good night's sleep, and really for healing and abundance. So right now, you could make a list of all the abundance that is allowing you to just sit here and to even be here in this class, right? Who built the chair that you're sitting in? What tree grew, or what textiles were woven to create the chair that you're sitting in? Who made the clothes that you're wearing? Where did the toothpaste that you're going to brush your teeth with tonight come from? The food you ate for dinner, the shoes you wore today, the car you drove today, the train you rode today. Think about all of the amazing people and resources that made your day possible. There's so many things that we can be thankful for any moment of any day. So I invite you to bring more gratitude practice into your life. You are meant to be fully expressed. The universe wants that for you. The universe wants freedom and more life for you. And your sexuality is a gift of more life, of pleasure, of expansion, of beauty, right? Beauty is expansive. That's why we are all drawn to beauty. Beauty is so important. It's one of the highest vibrations there is, beauty. And that's why no matter where in the world you are, you will walk into houses of God, whatever they call them, temples, whatever religion, whatever spiritual sect it is, and you will see a place of beauty. Right? Because it elevates us. It elevates the higher part of ourself. And so creating more beauty in your life is also a practice of gratitude and a practice of high vibration. This is why art is so important. Getting back to you bringing up art earlier, Aurora, right? Art is very, very important. Can you imagine a world without art? Oh my God, a world without music? No, no, absolutely not. I don't want to live in that world. And so you can use beauty every day in the way that you prepare your food, making your plate look beautiful, in creating your environment, in creating, in wearing clothes that feel beautiful, right? Making yourself feel beautiful. This raises your vibration, right? Beauty is a reflection of the highest form of spirit. So I think that's a lovely note to end on. So we'll do some more of this in a couple of weeks. I wanted to offer these classes this month. And yeah, before we close out, I would love to hear just any thoughts from the two of you, if you want to unmute and share what this brought up for you tonight, or what was helpful to you.
It's helpful to revisit. It's interesting for me. This is like with the flags. It's kind of like an overview that I pretty much do in the classes that I taught about, like that I teach about intention. And gratitude is like a big one, you know, like I hear you. So it was just like a nice review, but I never thought about how to just that related specifically to sex money. But so it was just like, you know, could like bring that attention and focus and see how it's playing there. Yeah.
Great. Thank you. I love your beautiful flags. Karen got one of your beautiful flags.
Oh, thank you.
Karen, what are your thoughts about tonight?
Well, it's certainly, you know, spoke to quite a few things that I'm quite familiar with and relate to, and understand the connection. It has me maybe, for some reason, thinking about it a little bit, because there seems to be also a little conflicted with some of it, but not in a good way, not in a bad way. But really, no, I'm glad I got to hear it, and thank you. I appreciate it, because I needed to hear it and see it.
You're welcome. Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, it's powerful work, you know, and this work really helped me a lot in my life. And I haven't taught it in a while. And so every time I teach it, there's something new that I get to learn, you know, in terms of where my growth is too. So even when the concepts are familiar, we hear it differently each time we hear it. So, yeah, so I look forward to any more thoughts that might come up around it. Everyone watching on recording, lots of love to you. Would love to hear your thoughts if you want to pop me a message. So I will put the handouts for this in the portal, and this video will be in the portal if you want to revisit it. I'll put my slides in there as well, so you can access those if you want to go back to any of it. And yeah. There are some assignments, and so if you want to do the assignments, you can. This is sort of like an extra class, so you know, it's totally up to you if you want to do that. But I would say the biggest thing is to really look at what some of those messages are, continue to look at the messages about sex and money that you got growing up and how those might be playing out now in different ways. And then the piece around developing more practices around gratitude. See how many you can create. Oh, I love this song. Thank you for this song. Thank you, Lady Gaga, for making this song, right? I mean, it could be every moment of every day you could be doing this, right? So, yeah. Karen, I wanted to ask you, did you get to see the interview that Oprah did with Lady Gaga?
Yeah.
The 2020 Vision one?
Yeah, whoa.
Yeah, whoa. powerful,
Yeah.
massively vulnerable.
Yeah.
So Karen's a big Gaga fan. I was like, you have to see this video. But if you haven't watched it, Oprah's doing this series. It's like the 2020 Vision series. And she's interviewing
amazing.
all these awesome women. I saw that she did one with Tina Fey. I haven't looked at that one yet. But yeah, she's just interviewing these amazing
Are
people.
they online?
Yeah, they're on YouTube. So
Okay.
the one with Lady Gaga, whoa, whoa, whoa. Amazing. Just her story is,
Wow.
it's something. It's really something. So I have a whole new appreciation for her that I didn't even realize. Yeah.
Maybe that's, that speaks to your one point about stuff that happens to you. Is there?
Yeah. 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 To look how she created strength out of, she talks very openly about sexual assault and mental health and her struggles, and she has chronic pain in her body. Someone that dances the way she does, that's in pain all the time, like that's just, I can't even imagine. Yeah, most people would just be paralyzed by it.
Suffering.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she does suffer, but she keeps going. It's pretty amazing. So anyway, when you want some inspiration, watch Oprah's series. Definitely that one is a really good one to watch. So,
Cool.
All right. Lovely to have you both here tonight. Sending you a big hug. And I'll see you again in a couple of weeks.
Thank you, Amy Jo. Thank you,
You're
Karen.
welcome.
Bye-bye.
Have
Good
a good
night.
night.
Good night.